I'm Linda Fox. I'm senior reporter with PhocusWire. I'm in the PhocusWire studio at Phocuswright Conference. And I'm joined by Chinmai Sharma. He's global head of lodging, ground and sea. Welcome. Oh, at Sabre, I should say.
Thank you, Linda.
So you've just been appointed to the role. And what I wanted to ask you is, what's on your to-do list? What are you prioritizing?
Yeah, I mean, Sabre has a dominant role to play within travel. And then my focus is to how do we make sure we get the best content from lodging, ground and sea partners so that we can give it to our managed travel community. So in the short run, we just want to make sure that all the compelling content, competitive rates, visual content, scripted content is available for our managed travel category partners, and then make it as easy as possible for the travel agencies to basically book that on our tech.
And do you prioritize? I mean, obviously, the hotel industry is massive. It's a big segment for Sabre. You've got the technology around it. Does that mean, naturally you would tend to sort of prioritize around that, or do you try and treat all equally?
I think we think about it as a complete trip. So in order for the complete trip to happen, obviously you need various components. So it is true that air and lodging, etc., are bigger parts of our business, but then we put equal amount of attention on rail and car rental and cruise as well. Because anybody who's looking to book the trip, they need all components. So either we'll develop the tech ourselves or we'll work with other partners. But our main value addition is that on the platform, we want everything to be available, all components of travel.
And I think predominantly your background is in the hotel technology industry. So I was curious to know, what are you bringing from your previous roles and even right back to, your college life? What are you bringing that you kind of going to apply to Sabre?
Yeah, so I've worked at previous companies like Expedia and hotel companies, etc. So I think what we're trying to do is how do we make sure that the fragmented content that's out there is available in very easy bite-sized portion sizes for the travel agent community. Because unlike air, the lodging and the other areas are very fragmented, and it's a global supply scenario. So it's not as concentrated as air.
Yeah.
That usually leads to other problems like normalization, mapping, and how do we bring that content together. So, like I said, bring as much supply as possible so that the travel agency community, gets what they need and continue to evolve in that way.
And I read also that you're a mathematician by your academic studies, and I wondered if that, can you bring some of that to the role, especially now that data is such a huge thing? I mean, I'm kind of assuming here that your brain works in a certain way, so...
Yeah, you kind of put me on the spot. I mean, I did study math, but I wasn't terribly good at it. But I think the analytics part is really important.
Right.
And I think that's a base that you require everywhere.
Yeah.
So the good thing is that new tools are evolving all the time using AI and ML, etc., which help you a lot. I think the travel ecosystem has become very complex, and that's why utilizing these tools is really important. And there are various applications of it. I mean, personalization probably would be the biggest one, as to how do you, make that travel easier for the end traveler.
Yeah. Okay. Now, when you think about hotel technology, what do you think are the gaps? What needs to happen? Is it, are the technology gaps? Do you think it's cultural gaps? Do you think it's resource gaps? Where are you seeing the kind of gaps?
Yeah. I think, like we were discussing that the hotel business as an example is much more fragmented compared to air, and that leads to different kind of problems. So first of all, every market is different. And, language capabilities, the kind of content, how do you normalize that, structure of room types, etc. So all these problems become more complex at scale when you enter the hotel category. I think the complexity is all the way from supply to our demand partners. So in our language, supply is anywhere where travelers actually stay or use car rentals, etc. And then demand partners are travel agencies. And that whole ecosystem needs to work together so that the end traveler can benefit from that. So just the various parts of that ecosystem are pretty complex. Mm-hmm. And Sabre does a pretty good job of bringing everything together and then staying on top of it with new flexible APIs so that we are able to give the benefit of whatever the suppliers want to provide to the managed travel category. And that's what makes it, more complex.
And presumably, AI is just increasingly coming into all of this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. AI is definitely making it a lot easier. Like we were saying, personalization is probably the first aspect, which AI will impact a lot. So every customer has its own preference. Every managed travel agency have their own criteria on how they want to manage travel. And if you bring those variables into the complete trip, then the only way to do it properly is using AI.
Okay.
So we are using AI in different capabilities. Sabre has a long-standing relationship with Google. So we are using, as you know, Google is an AI-first company.
Sure.
So we're using Google technology to come up with new solutions like Air IQ, Travel AI, and Lodging AI. And how that helps us is that we make recommendations to our travel agency community on based on the customer profile and within the guardrails of their managed travel program, what recommendations should we give them for supply partners? That's where Lodging AI becomes very crucial.
Okay. And I just also wanted to ask you about another facet of your life, which is that you're on the NY Tisch Hospitality Innovation Hub.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Yes.
And I just, what are you seeing in terms of innovation?
Yeah, I mean, travel technology has always been a little bit late to invest and adapt compared to some of the other industries. But the good thing is that in the last 5 to 10 years, I think a fair amount of investment is now getting into startups.
Yeah.
So the NYU Innovation Hub is one such platform where resources are available to young graduating students who have an interest in technology and travel. I think some of the interesting areas that people are trying to solve are, that complete trip. How do you make sure that end-to-end a traveler gets what they need? And then, like we were discussing, the ecosystem is very fragmented. So even in terms of revenue management, personalization, display, merchandising, retailing, I think these are areas where I think there is a fair amount of startup focus is going there.
Okay.
And that's very exciting.
And given how challenging it's been for startups in the past year or so in terms of funding, what's the kind of best advice that you're giving to your kind of student or your cohort right now?
Yeah, I mean, compared to 5, 10 years ago, I think the advantage we have now is that the startup community and the VC funding models have become a lot easier. There are established models out there which are able to fund good ideas.
Sure.
So I think to anybody who's starting the business fresh, they should obviously follow the basics of what are you trying to solve? Has it been solved before or not? But then utilize platforms like Phocuswright, like the NYU Innovation Hub, etc., to get exposed to a larger community. And then, if you have an idea, there's definitely a space for it. And hopefully you get noticed.
Chinmai, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Linda.